Once again, I'm so excited I could scream. We are here with, as they call her, the little lady with the big voice, the legendary Scherrie Payne, former member of the Supremes.
Hi, Steve.
Thank you for coming, Scherrie.
Oh, so happy to be here.
You know I love you, right, Scherrie?
Oh, I love you too. We're cousins.
We are cousins.
All right, yeah.
So, Scherrie, for the people who don't know, how did you get started in music?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was back in Detroit. I had just graduated from Michigan State in 1966, and I started teaching school. And I graduated in medical technology, but I knew I didn't want to be a med tech when I graduated. So instead of doing my 1 year internship when I got home, I basically wasn't doing anything. My mother said, after I paid all this money to
She
go
said,
to
"You gonna do
college,
something."
you're going to do something. $1,200 a year. Whoa,
$1,200 a year?
$1,200 a year. Books cost more than that now.
For real, one of them.
So anyway, my cousin Melinda Payne, who was a teacher, she said, "Well, I can get you into substitute teaching." So I started doing that, and then I was teaching at Grayling School of Observation in Detroit, off of Woodward and State Fair. And every day I went home with a headache because I had senior ungraded boys.
I was about to say, did you like teaching?
Oh, I liked it, but I went home with a migraine headache every day, and it was a real task. But in the meantime, my sister Frida had come home from New York, where she
Her
was
sister
living.
is Frida Payne.
Yeah, Frida Payne, yes. And she had just signed with Invictus Records. And so she was home, and she was on the phone with Eddie Holland of Holland Dozier Holland.
Who wrote all of the Supremes' #1 songs in the 60s.
And Four Tops, yeah. Eddie and Brian Holland.
And Martha Reeves and the Vandellas.
And Lamont Dozier. And so Frida was talking with Edward on the phone in the kitchen, and so I went to the piano in the living room, and I started playing a tune I had written.
You did that on purpose?
On purpose, yeah. Everybody should know a little pain. I said, I'm going to write this for Gladys Knight and the Pips. And I was playing as loudly as I could. And so Frida calls me to the phone and said, "Eddie wants to talk to you." So I came to the phone and I said, "Hi, Eddie." He said, "Hi. What was that you were playing?" I said, "Oh, just a little tune I wrote."
A little tune that I wrote that I wanted you to hear.
I said, he said, "You have more?" I have lots more. He said, "Would you like to audition for our company, Invictus Records?" I said, well, "I don't care." Okay. So he said, "Well, I'll send a car around for you." So he had Ron Dunbar pick me up and took me over to Lamont Dozier's house, who lived in Palmer Woods, and went over there, and Edward and Brian were there, and McKinley Jackson, and a couple of other people. And I played about 5 songs on Lamont's white baby grand piano. And they said, "We'd like to sign you to our company." And I said,
You had a record deal.
a record deal.
And y'all see, if she did not take that shot when her sister was on the phone, she would
Right.
not be here today.
Right. And so they said, "Well, we have enough lead female vocalists already, so we'd like to put you in a group."
And they put you in Glass House.
Glass House. They formed Glass House around me and Tyrone Hunter, who was best friends with Edward and Brian and Lamont.
Around what year was this?
Oh, this was probably like 68, I think. Yeah, 68. And so it was Pearl Jones, Larry Mitchell, Ty Hunter, and me, Glass House. And that's how it started.
That's Glass House. It's sort of an early iteration, like the Black Eyed Peas later on, where they had the central female singer, and then there were male bandmates around her.
them.
So
Okay.
Glass House was a really early iteration of that kind of thing.
Yes.
So you go to Invictus Records.
Mm-hmm.
You know, actually, that song "Want Ads" by the Honeycomb. When I
Yes.
heard that song, I thought I could hear Scherrie Payne singing the song, and then I found a version with you singing.
I did sing it. First, just to go back just a little bit, originally Pearl Jones was in the group. It was me, Ty Hunter, Larry Mitchell, and Gloria Hendry, who later on became a James Bond girl. And Gloria only stayed a few months, and then she decided she wanted to go back to New York.
She went
Good
off to
thing
Hollywood.
she did.
She went off to Hollywood.
Get back to New York, and she became a James Bond girl. So her fame, that wasn't meant for her to be in the Glass House. But anyway, getting back to Crumbs Off the Table and Want Ads. I was sitting in the studio with Barney Perkins, who was the engineer, and just the two of us. And he said, "I'm going to play something for you." And he put it on. And I said, "Oh, I haven't heard this in quite a while." And I'm listening, and then halfway through, I said, "Wait a minute, That's not me. He said, no, that's Edna Wright. They gave it to the Honeycomb. I said, the Honeycomb? He said, yeah. He said, and I remember the story. I was just talking about it with Shelley Clark White, who I saw last night and last week also, an original member of the Honeycomb. And she remembers that when I had just finished recording it, and Edna was coming into the studio, and as she came in, she said, "Oh, girl, that was a bad song you just recorded." I said, "You like it?" She said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "You can have it." Now I don't remember saying that, but
Oh,
that's
but
what
you gave her that song.
Edna said that.
Edna
But
has a famous sister too, Darlene.
Darlene Love.
Darlene Love is
That's
Edna's
right.
sister.
That's right. And Edna passed away back in
Yes.
2021, I believe. And so, but anyway, next thing I know, Barney said, "Yeah, they recorded on the Honeycomb." So I really wasn't upset that much. And but Ty and Larry and Pearl had a fit. I said, "Oh, no big deal." And Shelley and I talked about it last week when she was joined me at my fellowship at Denny's here in Hollywood, and she said, "I remember that, and I remember the answer that you gave. You said, and I remember it too. I said it wasn't meant for me. God meant that for Edna.
God knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's
God
doing.
had other plans.
Mm-hmm,
The first time I ever heard that song, my mom had this cassette collection. It was a solid gold collection from every year from 1960 through like 1983.
Wow.
And as a kid, I would just listen to them one after the other. And the 1971 cassette had want ads on it. And I remember as a kid, I was like, I like this song.
Wow.
Yes, and when I thought of it, I thought I could hear Scherrie doing it. And then here we go. You
I did
sing
do
it. So Glass House happens. What happened that Glass House did not continue?
Well, good question. I'm trying to remember now. That was so long ago. We went on some tours with the company. We did the Apollo Theater, I think twice. We even traveled down south.
And did what they called the Chitlin Circuit back then?
Yeah, In fact, on one of the gigs, it was Ollie Woodson who said he played the drums for us in some little club down in Georgia or Alabama or someplace like that. And of course, I don't remember, but I remember the place because we went down these stairs. But he said he was the drummer. Ollie Woodson went on to become lead singer with the Temptations.
He was the lead singer on Treat Her Like a Lady.
Treat Her Like a Lady. Yeah. Oh, I loved Ollie Woodson, his voice. Ooh. But we weren't working as much and a little disgruntled. And
it just sort of took its course and it ended.
It took it, yeah, it ended, yeah. And I think Ty left the group, went with the Originals. And so we got, who joined our group? Was it Billy Prince, I think, joined our group? And or was it Ramon Scruggs? I can't remember now.
You were so good with names, Scherrie. Oh. You were so good with names.
Well, sometimes it fails me, but...
so we move into 1973.
Yes.
Something big happens for you in 1973.
Oh, yes. Lamont Dozier had come out to California and on a business trip. And while he was out here, he went to a party or some event, and Mary Wilson was there.
Were you dating Lamont at the time?
Yes, I was. I was his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. That's another story.
I'll leave it up to you. I'll leave it up to you.
Okay. But he had come out here and he ran into Mary Wilson at a party, and she told him Jean Terrell had just left the group and they were looking for another lead singer. So naturally he suggested moi. And so when he got back, he gave Mary my information, my phone number and everything. So Mary called me and she said Lamont had referred me to her. And she thought it was Frida at first. And he said, no, not Frida, her sister, because she knew Frida. Mm-hmm. They were friends. So she had me to send out, I sent an album of the Glass House, and I sent some pictures and FedExed them to her. And then that was, I think, on a Monday morning. Thursday night, I'm over to my best friend's house, Walter and Barbara Gaines. Walter was a member of the group, the Originals at Motown. And my best friends to this day, well, Walter's gone on, but Barbara Gaines is my best friend. But anyway, we were over to their house, Lamont and I, and my mother calls over there, and she says, Mary Wilson just called here. I want you to call her. I said, oh, okay. So called her, and Mary said, I received your package, and I loved what I saw, and I would love for you to come to Los Angeles. And I said, this is Thursday night. I said, when? She said, Saturday. I said, Saturday? She said, yeah, I've got your ticket at the airport already.
So
All
you
you have to
had 3 days.
3 days, yeah.
How did you wrap your mind around that?
Well, I said, well, okay. When I got off the phone, Lamont and Barb and Walt were hugging me and yelling and cheering, and I thought, wow. And then when I got home, Lamont took me home. When I walked in, I told my mother, and then I said,
Then the reality
the
sunk in.
Supremes, that's too big. I can't do this. Oh my goodness, what was I thinking? And my mother gave me that big mother talk because my mother, a motivator, she gave me that mother talk. And so Saturday morning, Walt's brother picked me up and took me to the Herbert Gaines, took me to the airport, came out here. Cindy Birdsong and her husband at that time, Charles Hewlett, picked me up, took me straight to Mary's house, and we went right into rehearsals. That was on a Saturday, suitcase and all at Mary's. And then Frida had an apartment in Hollywood, so they took me there afterwards. But anyway, I didn't know they had a gig the following Saturday at the State Fair in New Mexico.
So from the time you get the call, 3 days pass.
3 days
You're now
pass.
at Mary's house, suitcases and all, rehearsing. You now have 7 days to learn the entire show.
Not even 7 days, because we left on a
You had to
Friday.
travel.
Yeah,
had
had
to
to
travel.
travel. And so, well, Mary said, well, I'll do a couple of leads in some of the songs. Now, see, had it been Linda, because Linda's excellent at learning lyrics. She knows lyrics to every song, not me. But anyway, so we rehearsed every single day, got on the plane Friday, got to the place. Saturday morning, we're going into the venue, the State Fair venue, the tent, and we're going through the back way, and the fans are lined up on both sides of the ropes. And they're yelling, Mary, Mary, Cindy, Cindy, Diana, Diana. And I thought, dang, I don't look anything like Diana.
They thought you were Diana Ross. They thought Diana Ross had come back to the group. So by this point, it's 1973. So Diana Ross is 3 years removed from the group at this point.
Yes.
So by this point, she is Diana Ross.
Right, exactly.
Superstar solo star Diana Ross.
So we do the show, and they said, if you do a good job, you got the job. And I think it was Donny Hathaway who was on the bill with us, I think. And got through the show, and I couldn't even be too nervous because I was too focused on, getting right notes, remembering. It happened so quickly. And so got through the show, and then afterwards, Mary came and hugged me. Cindy came and hugged me. Bill Loeb, who was the manager, he came and hugged me. They said, you got it. You did it. You were great. I said, oh, my goodness. And I called my mother, crying and everything. I said, Mom, I did it. Mom. Not Mom, Mama. We didn't say Mom back then. Mama. I got the job. I did it. I made it.
Scherrie, it had to be incredibly intimidating to step into such. I mean, at that time, there was no group on the planet other than the Beatles who had a bigger name than the Supremes.
That's right.
That had to be mind-blowing.
It was mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Maybe it's a good thing it happened so quickly. You didn't have time to think about it.
I didn't have time to think about it. You're right, Steve. You're absolutely right. No time to think about it.
They threw you straight into it.
Straight into it.
What was your favorite song you recorded with the Supremes?
I think, well, I always loved I Hear a Symphony and My World is Empty Without You, I think. But I remember at Michigan State, I was in summer school, walking through the dorm, going to my quantitative analysis class. And
fun.
Yeah, because I was in medical technology. And so as I was passing through the dorm and this girl's room was open, and I heard this song, bum, 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 Where Did Our Love Go?
Baby,
Yeah, uh-huh. And so I went into their room, and they had that little 45 box there playing the record. I said, oh, hi. I said, what song was that? They said, oh, it's a group called the Supremes. Where Did Our Love Go? I said, oh, I'm from Detroit. I know that group. I've heard of them before. And it just stuck in my head. And I said, who knew that, 4 years later, no, 66, 60, because I was 65, I think. And who knew that
8 years later.
8 years later,
You'd be stepping in those shoes.
I'd be stepping in those shoes.
So your favorite song by the Supremes is My World is Empty Without You.
Yes.
From when you joined the group, a song that you led on, which one do you like?
Oh, my goodness.
Because I know I have a favorite.
Oh, you do?
And he is the same favorite, I think.
Oh, gosh. I'm trying to remember what song did I record.
Mine is Driving Wheel.
Oh, driving wheel. You're my driving wheel. Feels good, babe.
What's yours?
Color My World Blue. I love that song.
Okay.
Color My World Blue.
Okay.
And Driving Wheel, when I got to my church I'm a member of now, First Baptist Church of North Hollywood, Stafford Floyd, who was musical choir director at the time, he co-wrote that song, Driving Wheel. You're my driving wheel.
That album behind you, Mary Scherrie Payne,
Mm-hmm.
I think collectively as a whole, that is arguably the best album that the Supremes.
Really?
Yeah, collectively as a
Wow.
whole unit. Yes.
Thank you.
100%.
Yay. Thank you, Steve.
Did you all have input in those songs at that time, or was it just like this the material? This is what you're singing. Did you all have input?
Not really. Not that I can remember. They gave us the songs and say, learn this song, blah 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 blah. So we did.
Okay, so by this point, 1973, 74, Cindy Birdsong leaves the group.
Yes.
She's replaced by
Yes.
Susse Green.
Yes.
Things are changing in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Things are changing now.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Wilson's husband, Pedro, takes over as manager.
Yes.
What was that shift like?
Well,
Be candid.
be candid. Oh, I will. Because my mother said, if you can't say something good about somebody, don't say anything. That's why I haven't written a book. But things have changed now because I've gotten over all that. I would have handled it differently had I been in a different place spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some things he did that I didn't care for. And I voiced my opinion to Mary, so did Cindy and then Susse. But, she was in love. That was her husband. So,
For those who are completely unfamiliar with the story, do you mind sharing some of the things that may have happened that you didn't like?
I think on some of the TV shows, he wanted Mary to be up front, Susse and I to be in the back, or Cindy and I to be in the back. Even some songs where I was doing the lead, the camera wasn't on me when I was doing the lead, it was on Mary. So naturally, he's pushing his wife instead of the group as a whole. He did some other things. I hate to, because, I like him now. He's a different person. I'm a different person. But he was not cool. I don't like to talk badly about someone, but at that time, no. And Mary's gone on to, it's been almost 4 years since she made her transition.
Correct.
Which is still hard to believe. Boy.
Ironically, what you're describing that happened is what Mary ultimately said happened early in the days with the group.
Okay.
With Diana, Florence, Mary, one being pushed out front and the other two being pushed to the back. Interesting.
Even on some songs, I remember one time in the studio here in Hollywood, and Mary was singing in the studio doing her lead on a song, Don't Let My Teardrops Bother You, I think was the name of the song. Did a beautiful job. She sounded wonderful. And I was in the studio with Edward and Brian, and I remember remarking to Edward, I would love to do a ballad, because they had me doing all these up-tempo songs. I wanted to do a song I could really sink my teeth into. And I remember when Mary came in to get some tea, and I was telling her how beautifully she sounded. And I said, I would love to do a ballad myself. And then Mary said, I guess she was feeling her oats. She said, you can't even handle the fast ones. I said, what? And I saw red. And Richard Davis, Edward and Brian's cousin, saw me, and he took me by the arm and quickly led me out of the room. I was ready to go to war.
Because Scherrie is a Scorpio, y'all.
Yeah. You don't want to see the other side of me come out. Veronica, that's my altar.
Your alter ego is Veronica?
It is Veronica.
Veronica was about to show up in the studio?
That's
interesting.
Yeah, but, she was just, Pedro had pumped her up, so it was okay. I forgave her. But There were other moments when Pedro did things to her that I didn't like, and she didn't realize the effect it had on me, like when he got physical with her and put his hands on her. And, and then another instance, which I never told her, she never knew this, but he had tried to hit on my sister.
Frida.
Yeah. After I joined the group, and I never told her that he did that.
That her husband was hitting on her group member's sister.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I want to read something.
Okay.
This is a journal entry from Mary Wilson,
Okay.
September 1974,
Okay.
in light of what you just mentioned a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it finally happened. Pedro beat me up.
Ooh.
He slapped me around onto the floor. I couldn't believe this was happening.
Wow.
The times before, when Pedro broke the windows, threw me in the pool,
Ooh.
I was very afraid. But this time, with the physical beating, it felt like it was too much for me to handle. I mean, is love worth all this?
No, it isn't. No,
No,
it
it
isn't.
is
I remember sometimes she would have put makeup over her blackened eye. And so that's why I didn't care for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I think Jim Brown was his best friend who had his own reputation, but Pedro has had his own issues. And I guess she forgave him, and I don't like to talk badly about him because there's his daughter, beautiful daughter, Terkessa, and he had two sons, little Pedro and Ralphie, who went on to be with the Lord quite a long time ago. And he's a changed person, but back then he was not nice, and I didn't appreciate a lot of things that he did and said, and so that's it.
When people think of the Supremes, they think of the height of glamour.
Mm-hmm.
You all, and contrary to what people also believe when they think of a superstar, this, I think, might be a lesson for young folks today. You all weren't millionaires back then.
No. I was never a millionaire. Wished I could have been. I should have been.
Should have been.
Yeah. The pay was not good. I think at one point, Cindy and I, and Sue said the musicians got more than we did. And Pedro was doing some other things. And I hate to talk about him like that because he's still alive. It's not nice. But I accepted it to stay in the group. But it wasn't good. It wasn't a good situation financially. And everybody thinks that you're making all this money, but we weren't. We weren't. They were, but we weren't.
The industry hasn't changed much even today. It
You're
really,
right.
it ain't changed much even today. Last thing on that. You all were basically salaried employees.
Yes.
Whereas that's not something people would think of. They would think that this group is making all this money and everyone's doing so well. You all were essentially salaried employees.
Salaried employees. The musicians got paid more than we did. We were supposed to get a percentage at the end of the year of the net profits, but there were never any net profits because the manager was spending all the money. Even bought us dogs as a gift, and we found out later on through the accountant that put it on our American Express, the Supreme's American Express card. So we essentially paid.
You bought your own dog.
We bought our own dog. And so I ended up giving mine to my lawyer because I couldn't keep it.
What about that time stands out as the height of excitement for you? Like, is there a performance or a show that you remember doing that you still think of today?
Wow, there were so many. It wasn't just one. I mean, we traveled all over the world, and here this little girl from Detroit who had never been anywhere farther than Puerto Rico with my mother and my sister when she was singing. Here I'm traveling all over to Japan, the Netherlands, Australia, the Philippines. It was a whirlwind. I can't say any one place. Well, Japan was always my favorite place because it was so different than the other places. But there were highlights probably in each country. It was just fantastic. fantastic. So many
In
experiences.
spite of anything else, you got to you were traveling the
Yeah.
world. You were living your dream.
And we were traveling all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed out of the country most of the time, then in the country.
Because you had to probably
Had to,
at that
yeah.
point.
We were constantly working.
Most by that point, Motown had started focusing on movies.
Mm-hmm.
They had let go. Most of the
Oh,
groups
right.
at the time struggled because they weren't paying the groups any attention. They had
Right.
focused on movies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is with 1975, 76, 77.
Mm-hmm.
Mahogany was going on.
That's right.
The Wiz was coming up soon.
That's right. That's right.
So the record sales
Mm-hmm.
suffered as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. That's
you all
right.
had to work.
Mm-hmm. We had to.
1977, the group disbands.
Yes.
What would you say ultimately led to the disbandment of the group?
Pedro, he was telling Mary that she should be on her own, that she didn't need us. And so she told us that we did London, I think in 1976. That would be the last performance. And then, so we thought, what are we going to do? Or was it 77, I guess, 77. And London Palladium, I think that was the last group gig. And then I remember there was one other job they had forgotten about in the summer over in
South
somewhere.
America.
Yeah, somewhere. And Pedro asked if we would do that job, and Susay said no. And she and her mother called me and said, we've got to stick together. Don't do it. Don't do it. So then he came over to my apartment and tried to talk me into doing it. And but anyway, we ended up not doing it.
I have a feeling that if Mary had asked,
if she had asked me, I would have done it. I would have gladly have done it. But just to spite him, I said, okay, no, I'm not going to do it.
that's hard.
Yeah,
That's
because I
hard.
loved her. I loved her dearly. Absolutely.
And most of the time when groups have internal turmoil, it usually is about management.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually never about what's happening within the group members. It's always management.
The management, yeah.
Every story of any group that's ever split up, it's always management.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If she had not made him the manager, just
And,
stay in
and
his
gave
place.
him her stake in the group.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That she listened to him, or I guess sometimes he probably threatened her.
Mhm.
If you don't do it my way, it's my way or the highway.
Mhm.
So
I
there you
think
go.
that's a lesson
Mm-hmm.
for women in
Mm-hmm.
the industry, because we've seen it time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
You let your boyfriend, husband take control.
Take control. No. Mm-mm.
That's a no-no.
It's a no.
Teach these girls, Scherrie. That's a no-no. It's a no-no. So the group ends, and what happens with you? Mary decides to go off solo.
Yes.
What happens then with you and Susay?
Well, we're still under contract with Motown, so we were thinking, what can we do? We were talking with Suzanne DePass, and she said, well, you both can't be lead singers, solo singers. So we thought, she said, why don't you two pair up together as a duo? And we said, oh, yeah, I guess we could do that. Well, at first, we thought we would continue on and just get
As the
another
Sopranos,
member
just
and
get someone else.
get someone else. So I told Susay about my dear close friend, Joyce Vincent Wilson at that time.
From Tony Orlando.
From
and
Tony
Dawn.
Orlando and Dawn. So she said, okay. So we had interviewed several other ladies, and I think LaToya Jackson even. And so she met Joyce. We met for lunch, and she loved Joyce. She said, oh, I really like her. I think she would be great. So we told Suzanne, and then an edict came from somewhere above at Motown and said since there's no original member in the group, we're just going to retire the group. We thought, oh, God. So that's when Suzanne said, well, maybe you can become a duo group, just the two of you. And so Susay is a writer, prolific writer,
Mhm.
and I was writing songs at the time. So I think we did demos of, I think, 10 of our songs, each of us. And with Gene McDaniels, and they chose which ones they thought would be great for the album.
And the album was Partners.
Partners. And Suse came up with that title, Partners.
Now,
And
why didn't they want the two of you to be solo?
because they had enough solo artists on the
by that
label
point.
already. But at that point,
Mhm.
I think Thelma Houston. I'm trying to think who else was on there. They didn't want another solo singer.
Mhm.
So we became partners. And they picked out the songs they wanted on the album. And that was it.
And during that time, you wrote a play,
Oh, yes. I think
10 Good Years.
10 Good Years. Yeah. I wrote 10 Good Years. I wrote it as a straight play. Then I wrote as a musical. Then I turned it into a screenplay years later. Yeah.
Scherrie is a prolific screenwriter.
I try.
So this is 1977. We go through the 80s.
Yes.
At what point do you all decide to come back together and create the former ladies of the Supremes?
That was due to my daughter's father's request. He said, I think it would be great if you all got back together. You could still make a lot of money, tour, blah, 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 blah. And he was with this record label called Superstar International. And so it was Jean Terrell and Cindy Birdsong and myself. And Cindy stayed with us for several months. We even went over to, I think, to was it Denver to do some kind of concert there with the Originals. And I think Sam and Dave were on the show. I'm trying to think who else. But anyway, then after that, Cindy decided she wanted to do her evangelizing. And she didn't want to do that anymore, the secular. So Jean said, well, let me call up Linda Lawrence. So she called up Linda, and we met, and then Jean, Scherrie, Linda, formerly of the Supremes. So they said,
Flows.
Yeah, the Flows. Some people were calling us the Flows or Floss, and it was supposed to be just the acronym, but FLOS. But people kept saying the Flows, Floss, blah 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 blah. And then Motown said that we couldn't say. Anyway,
The Supremes. They didn't
right?
want you to
Yeah,
do that.
yeah. We had to use our names.
You know what's interesting about that?
What?
Mary, in her book, writes about she actually was the rightful owner of the name, but the lawyer she had at the time lied to her and told her that Motown owned the name, but Mary was the first person to file that trademark.
Wow. See there?
She actually owned the name without knowing that she owned the name.
And she owned it. Well, in lieu of the name ever being sold, she was to get half.
If they ever sold the
If
name,
they
which
ever
they
sold the
eventually
name,
did.
which they eventually did, but I don't think
she got as much as she should have.
Mm-mm.
Whatever she got, it wasn't what was owed to her. That's for sure. So you all tour as the Flows
Yes.
through the 80s
Mm-hmm.
and the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2000, what happened?
Oh, wow. That's when Scott Sander called, and he was with Diana Ross, and she was doing her Return to Love tour, and he called me. And I don't know how he got my number, but anyway, and he introduced himself over the phone and said, Diana Ross would like for you to join her on the Return to Love tour. I said, oh, what? Me? And so he said, and I'm thinking, what would I be doing? I guess I would be singing.
Because in your head, you're like, why not call Mary and Cindy?
Yeah, right. I said, maybe I would be sitting in the wings or something,
You'll
doing
do
the
like additional
harmony or something, doing the third harmony. And so he said, we'll call you later. I said, okay. So afterwards, my next door neighbor was an attorney, entertainment lawyer, Evan Levin. I told her about it because I told him when I spoke with him later, I said, what about the other Supremes? He said, well, who are they? I said, well, I was talking to Suse Green when you called me. And then there's Linda Lawrence, Jean Terrell. He said, oh. And so my next door neighbor said, why would you mention them? That'll be less money for you. I said, well, no, I think it should be all of us. I think it would be great. And so the next morning, he called and said he passed the idea by Diana using all of us, and she thought it was a great idea. So he said, can I have their numbers? So I gave him up everybody's numbers, and I said, well, I think I asked if I could call, who was it, on my own? Jean, somebody. I think it was Jean on my own. But anyway, we were all going to do it. And we decided they wanted to fly us into New York the following Tuesday. And we decided what we were going to wear, black and white. And then that Tuesday morning, about 5 o'clock in the morning or earlier, the travel agent called. There had been a huge snowstorm at John F. Kennedy Airport, and the airport had closed, so that canceled the trip. So then they said, I'm trying to think of his name. I can't think of it. But anyway, they said they'd like for Jean and Susay and I to come in and do something on tape. I guess Diana wanted to see what we looked like. She hadn't seen us in all those years. And so I think...
But she hadn't seen you since the 70s.
Right, yeah. And so I think Jean refused to do it. She said, that's like auditioning. I'm not doing that. And so Susay and I
Jean
came.
was like, I was your replacement.
Yeah.
I don't need to. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So Susay and I came, and we just sat in front of the camera and spoke and blah, 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 so she could see us. And Linda did too. And after that, I think that next day, he called and said she wanted Linda and I to do it. And I said, I think, and Mary, Cindy was letting Mary handle her situation. And then her manager, who admitted to me, Richard Duryea, afterwards, that he made a mistake by telling Mary not to do it, to
That was a
hold
missed
out for.
opportunity.
She was holding out for more money because she said Diana was making all these millions and millions,
15
and they
to
were
20, she said.
yeah, and that Diana said that was not true, and she said, plus I'm paying for everything. All you have to do is show up with your suitcases, and so
What would you say was the biggest reason that that didn't work out?
well, because they were holding out, and he said he told Mary not to go for it, and then when they decided, oh, maybe we should, and called, and they said, sorry, the train has left the station. It was too late. It was too late, and Diana chose Linda and me because we had been working together, and
You already had camaraderie.
we already had camaraderie, exactly. So it was easier.
It's easy.
Easy, yeah.
All you had to do was just learn the arrangements, how she did them.
Exactly.
That was the only thing.
Exactly.
You knew the songs. You just had to figure out the new arrangements and rehearse. That's it.
That's right.
With Diana.
That's with Diana, yeah.
You all did an enormous press tour. Linda and I
Yes,
talked
we
about this
did.
too. You did an enormous press tour. Oprah, The View.
Oh,
the Today Show,
man.
Rockefeller Center is what was Today's Show?
Yeah, Divas something.
Divas
Sing.
Divas 2000 on VH1.
Yeah, and Mariah Carey was on the show. Donna Summer. I'm trying to remember who else.
Whitney was on the show.
Wow, she was?
Divas 2000?
I can't
Whitney was-
remember. I can't remember.
Was she on the 2000 show?
Destiny's Child. That's right. Destiny's Child was on the show. I'm trying to think who else.
That had to be incredible.
Oh, it was incredible. Because I remember our dressing room was right next to Destiny's Child. That's when they had 4 members. And I remember taking a picture with them because they were a new group, so I wasn't really familiar with them. And they
But
were
they
so
knew who you
excited.
were.
Yeah, they were so excited to meet us and took a picture with us. And so I said, I can show this to my daughter when I get home.
Would you say that tour, that time, that was the height for you? Like that was like,
I think
this is-
so.
this is-
Yeah, I think that was the height. Even Luther Vandross came to the, I think it was the first concert, the one in Philadelphia. I think he was there, sitting right down front.
Why do you think, for the people at home, why do you think that tour ended? I know what the media said.
They were trying to pressure Diana into signing an exclusive contract
With that
with
company.
with that company, and she didn't want to do it. And she had brought dancers over from London who were fantastic. I mean, the show was fantastic, and they were trying to get her to do something she didn't want to do. And I remember we were in Toronto, and we at the theater, and after we did our rehearsal, sound check, we were sitting down front, and she said, well, the promoters were at the back of the room. She said, I know they can hear me, but they're trying to get me to do something I don't want to do, and I'm trying to hold out as long as I can. But afterwards, we went back in the dressing room with her, and Linda and I and Diana and the two backup singers. I can't Sandy. I can't think of their names right now, but anyway, we held hands, and I can see it right now. She was in her bathrobe, white bathrobe. We held hands and we prayed. And afterwards, she just broke down and cried because there was so much pressure on her because she was trying to keep everybody. She was so happy that she had all these people working because at dinner one night she said, "How many people are on the tour?" And I think the publicist said, or the travel agent said, I think it was 94. She said, "Wow." She was so excited. She had 94 people working.
Bringing in income, feeding
Exactly.
their families, paying
Exactly.
their bills.
Mm-hmm.
The pressure had to be intense because there's this media scrutiny because the tour was incorrectly billed as a Supremes reunion tour,
And
it wasn't.
it
It was
wasn't.
a Diana Ross tour with a
Exactly.
Supremes component.
Exactly.
The fallout happens with Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So now people are looking and going, well, she's bringing these Supremes that we've never heard of
Mm-hmm.
on this tour. And then the media is now saying, well, but the ticket sales are lagging, which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't true.
But wasn't true.
And so
we
now
had
she's
great
got all this
audiences.
pressure.
Yeah, all that pressure.
And
on
really, they
her.
were trying to get her to do something she didn't want to do. And
Force her.
she stuck to her guns.
She stuck to her guns. She wouldn't do it, and I can't blame her. If they just left us alone, so we never made the tour back here to California.
Which is what she wanted, California
Exactly.
and Vegas,
and then
Los
Vegas, yes. And the dancers, she had promised them that you're going to see Vegas because they had never been to Vegas before. So it was just,
Well, you know, by the time this is released, it will be 25 years since
Wow.
that tour. I think that it's about time that maybe we get Scherrie Payne, Linda Lawrence, Diana Ross back together and come to Los Angeles and Las Vegas and finish that out and bring closure to that.
from your lips to God's ears.
Let's bring closure to it because,
Okay.
you know, the media spun that in such a way that
Mhm.
it was unfair for Diana
Yes,
because
it was.
it wasn't what it was made out to be. And it was made to look like, well, the tour was canceled because Mary and Cindy weren't on it, so that's why people didn't come see it. But that wasn't true.
That wasn't true. That was all hype. All hype. She tried so hard. And she was just wonderful on the tour. She was so, I know she said, people have called me a bitch in the past. And she said maybe at one point I was, but, you know, I've grown since then. I'm so blessed. And she talked about Florence and teared up and had to leave the room.
Because she would have done that differently. Just like you said, if you were in a different spiritual space back in those days, you would have done things differently.
I would have done different, handled Pedro in a different way,
What would
much
you have
better
done
way.
different there?
Prayed for him for one thing, and then then talked to him, stood up to him, because I would just sort of like cower back in a not cower, but acquiesce, and because Mary was accepting it, so what could I do?
And she was the leader of the
And
group.
she was the leader of the group, absolutely.
Though not lead singer, it was her group.
It was her group. That's right.
Scherrie, of all the things you have experienced in your life, from a career, motherhood, sisterhood, what are you most proud of?
My daughter, Scherrie Payne Phillips. I'm so proud of my baby girl. But my baby, she's 39 years old.
She'll always be your baby.
She'll always be my baby. I'll go up to her now and say, "Oh, Shoshana, my baby, give your mommy a kiss, honey." She said, "Oh, Mom, you're so annoying." I can't help it. It's the mother in me.
She's a very accomplished vocal teacher.
Yes, she is. La Voix, French for the voice studio in Studio City. What's the address? 4344 Laurel Canyon Boulevard. And Thelma Houston is one of her students.
Really?
Oh, yeah. She has an array of students of all ages, some children, and a lot of her students are actors as well.
You take vocal lessons with her?
I do too, and so does Frida. I need it because my voice is not the same after all these years. Oh, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Well, you've been using it.
I've been using it, but not like I should have. So, and the pandemic came, and we virtually stopped working because everything got cut off for so many people. Yeah, but and plus I'm older now, so my vocal cords have changed, have thickened, and so she's trying to get me back on track. But her vocal students are amazing. Some of them are great.
They are.
As you witnessed at the Catalina Jazz Club. last month. So and
Last
so
month and a couple months before that, they're really
oh
good
yeah, right, yeah,
consistently.
right, yeah,
Really
yeah.
good.
And Shoshana also has 2 master's degrees, and so I'm very proud of my baby.
This podcast is called Things I've Learned.
Oh, that's a
Sherry, what's
great.
something you've learned?
Oh my goodness. I've learned to be more forgiving of myself and stop blaming myself and living in the past. I've got to move on. I can't dwell in the past because the past is not going to change. It's the past. That's why
It's passed
it's
away.
past. Yeah. And there was a retreat I went on back at the end of October with 2 of Lamont Dozier's sisters. Lamont went on to be with the Lord in August 8th of 2022. But 2 of his sisters are my dear, dear sisters. And one is a psychologist. And her daughter, Scherrie, who is my goddaughter, named after me, is also a psychologist. And we had a retreat in Orlando, outside of Orlando, Florida. And there were 11 of us, and we sat at this long table. It wasn't just for fun and games. We did exercises, and they had this white mask that you like for Halloween type mask, and they had us sit around this table, and they had us to write on the outside how the world perceives us. So I wrote all kinds of things like smart, intelligent, pretty, small, blah, 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 ambitious, blah, 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 blah. Then they said after that, take that same pen and turn it on the inside of the mask and write how you feel about yourself. Like, whoa. Some of the ladies broke out in tears, the things they were writing. And I remember writing fat, ugly, old. I wrote all kinds of things that I was feeling on the inside. And I said, it's like that song Aretha sang, laughing on the outside but crying on the inside. And I gave a testimony at my church about 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. I held up the mask in the church sanctuary, and then I told them how we turned it on the inside and wrote how we felt about ourselves. And so many church members came up to me afterwards saying, thank you, thank you. I never realized that you felt that way about yourself. I mean, you always present this vivacious, outgoing personality. And I said, but inside, wow.
There's many of us who feel that way.
And they said, thank you. They said that really helped them because we never know when we talk to people and say things. Sometimes we can say really cruel things or biting things, cutting things. We don't know what we're doing to that person because we think they can take it, and really they can't. Some people might be suicidal. Look at so many I shouldn't say nutcases, but people who are doing crazy things now because they're having mental challenges, and it's the way we treat others, how they respond. We don't know that they're suffering on the inside, and we need to be more gentle, show more love toward people. And that's what it's all about, showing love, forgiveness. And that's what I'm learning about myself. I've learned, and I'm still learning, to forgive myself for mistakes that I made. I should have done this. I should have, could have, should have. Well, you didn't. So you move on because there's always tomorrow. There's always tomorrow.
Always. Doing that mask exercise, did that allow you to release?
Yes, it did. I think I was the only one at the table who didn't cry because I don't cry easily. But there were some who just bawled. I mean, bawled when they start talking about their past and things within their family or family members, how they were treated. I said, wow, I learned a lot about myself, and I didn't realize that it had affected me like that because I was hiding from the world, the real me.
And especially as a performer.
Exactly. And that's why they said, a lot of people say, well, you're so dramatic on stage. And I said, but that's because I become somebody else on stage.
Who's your alter ego again?
Veronica.
You become Veronica.
I become Veronica. Yeah, Steve.
You turn into Veronica, so when they're watching the performance, they're looking at Veronica.
Yeah, they're looking at Veronica.
We call her Scherrie Payne, but this is Veronica.
This is Veronica here. I like to be dramatic.
Scherrie, if there's anything, if there was anything, any one moment that if you went back, that you might do different.
I've thought about that. That's been my problem. Things that I might have done differently. I know. Say like when I was going with Lamont Dozier, his sisters and his mother wanted me to get pregnant. I said, well, I can't get pregnant. I could be an unwed pregnant supreme. I would disgrace the name. And then I thought in later years, I wished I had. But then, I don't know.
Mm.
My mother would have had a fit if he hadn't married me.
Because you would have been married.
Right, exactly, because I remember my mother in my apartment got up in his face, when are you going to marry my daughter? And I should have said, yeah. Instead, I was defending. Instead, I was defending him, but it wasn't meant to be. Mm-hmm. And he got married eventually and had his own family. And his wife preceded him in death, I think about 6 months before, or a year before he died. And so it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be the way it ended up. That was supposed to be. And it was meant for me to meet Shoshana's father and have my beautiful daughter.
And have Shoshana.
And then my grandson, Sean Giovanni Hicks.
How has being a grandmother changed you?
Oh, wow. It's been wonderful. It's like reliving Shoshana through my grandson. Because I'll talk to him
through
too.
A different lens now.
Through a different lens. And he's 20 years old now. It's like, oh, dang. And he'll just look at me and like, oh, God.
It's hard for me to believe that Shoshana has a 20-year-old son.
20 years old.
She doesn't look much older than 20 herself.
I know, my baby. It's so pretty. And she's so smart. And Sean's so handsome. It's like, I just regret, my biggest regret is that my mother never lived to see any of her grandchildren. Because Frida's son, Gregory, was born 6 months after my mother died. She was 56 when she died in 77 from breast cancer.
You were still in the Supremes at that time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There was so much happening for you at that time.
Oh, my gosh. It was just awful,
So much transition happening.
So much pain in my life.
How did you deal with that? Because there's a lot of people watching this who are going through transition right now.
Wow. Well, I wasn't really into the Lord. That's what brought me back to the Lord after my mother died. And Frank Wilson, I thought about him this morning, who's with the Lord now himself.
He produced the Supremes album
yes, he
early
did.
on.
Mm-hmm.
Up the Ladder to the Roof.
Up the Ladder to the Roof, And he became a minister. And it was through his Bible studies I started attending and talking about my issues and my mother dying. But anyway, he brought me back to the Lord because in Detroit, I had stopped going to church when I was 16, and I didn't want to be bothered with church, and I don't need all that. And Frida started driving, and we would, instead of driving to Bethel AME Church, where we were members of, as well as the Gordy family, we would drive to Bob's Big Boy, what we're in 8 Mile. Then we'd come back home and say, ooh, church was so good today, Mama.
Heathens.
Then I remember one Sunday, Frida didn't turn the left to go to Bob's Big Boy. She turned the other way to get on the freeway. I said, where are you going? She said, going to church, because it was on the east side. I said, you want to go to church? Like, dang. And so, but anyway, I said, I vowed that I would never step foot in a church again, especially after my mother died. And
you were mad at God.
I was mad at God, yeah. Then I realized things happen, so many things happen to people, and we wonder why. I won't know until I get up to heaven. Hopefully I'll make it in there, even though I might be mopping, as my friend Mary Dysart said. But we don't know why things happen in life the way they do. When young people die or in a tragic accident, we just have to believe God has us. He hasn't left us. He hasn't abandoned us. And we just have to keep on keeping on and giving him praise and glory while we can, and share the faith. And that's what I try to do.
What does your faith mean to you?
It's my backbone. It's sometimes I get a little lax and I forget about my faith. I get depressed, and then I'll get a phone call or hear something on TV or read something, and it wakes me back up. It's like, Scherrie, where's your faith? You can't just go back and forth like this. You have to rest in it, live in it, and know that God's got you. Not just your front. He's got your back. Not just your back, but he has your front too.
And the sides.
And that's right. That's right. And he's watching over you. And things could be a lot worse. When I see people out on the streets or something, things could be a lot worse. You still have your sanity. You still have your home. You have your beautiful daughter, and um, I'm just thankful to God that He has brought me this far and kept me. I have wonderful friends. My partner Marvin Marshall. I'm just thankful. Wonderful friends who were instrumental in my life, like Will Norman and Eric Iverson, whom I love dearly, like my own. Um, I'm just so blessed. My sister is still here, and my best friend Barbara Gaines. I mean, I'm so blessed, so blessed.
You know, God brought us here, Scherrie.
Sure did. You're right, Steve.
God brought us here, Scherrie, because the way that worked out.
Whoa.
Missing those 2 flights and
Yeah,
sitting at the bar.
That's right. That's right.
I missed those 2 flights. I was in
Yeah.
Canada. Missed the first flight, was rerouted to another city. That flight got canceled. They're like, you got to stay overnight, but we're going to give you a hotel. I go to the hotel. I'm sitting at the bar. I'm talking to a lady. I say something about the Supremes. She goes and leaves and sits with her friend. And then they call me to the table. And then her friend goes, my daughter takes vocal lessons with Scherrie Payne's daughter.
Right. I had forgotten about that. Wow. See how things happen? It was meant to be.
God brought us here.
God brought us together. That's right. Praise
Thank
the
you
Lord.
for coming, Scherrie.
I'm so glad to be here, Steve. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. We have lots more work to do, you know.
That's right. This is just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
That's right.
Scherrie Payne. Thank you,
Steve
Scherrie.
Owens.